whispering ramble sort of video, but rather than just rambling about random stuff, I'm going to tell you how a film camera works. I've got a Minolta X-700 here. Hopefully that rattling isn't annoying and is actually satisfying. We'll see. Anyway, yeah, we're going to talk about all the functionality of the film camera, how you use it, and that's pretty much it. I figured it would be kind of fun to just talk about something that not a lot of people probably know about. It's a bit of an antiquated technology, but it's still pretty cool. But anyway, let's get started. Alright, so let's start with turning it on. How do you turn it on? It is battery powered. I don't know, maybe I'm just stupid, but when I first, got it, I didn't realize that film cameras were battery powered. Yes, they are in fact battery powered. So there is like electronic components to it. I don't know, I guess when you think of film camera, you just think of something like so basic that it doesn't use like electricity at all, but it does. The Minolta X-700 from like the 80s, I think, like 70s and 80s, so obviously they had, technology and electricity at that point. But anyway, it's battery powered. You put the batteries right there, you unscrew this, and you put the batteries in there. It takes two little, like, what are those called? I forget. It's those little, like, flat batteries, the little tiny ones that, like, go inside a watch. Anyway, it's those. It takes two of those. And then to turn it on, it's kind of hard to see because it's all black, unfortunately. But, right here, there's a little, so you have this dial, but right in front of the dial, right there, you can kind of see it, I think. There's an on-off switch. There's two operating modes. There's on, just regular on, and then there is also on with beep, with sound. I'm pretty sure the on with beep only applies if you use the timer mode. The timer mode is this little thing right here. You push that down. So like, it'll give you a beeping countdown for each, like, you press the button, then it goes beep, 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 and then tells you when it's gonna take the picture. So that's the only time that actually, now that I think about it, maybe the beep also just beeps every time you take a picture in general. I'm not 100% sure. I don't use the beep mode, so I'm not familiar. We're just gonna leave it off for now, though. It is actually functional. There are batteries in here, so I don't want to waste them. Alright, so that's how you turn it on. If you want to take a picture, it's pretty simple. Just like every camera nowadays, you just press this button right there. You just point it and click. There is a viewfinder here that you can look through. The lens cap is on. You'll want to take off the lens cap. But I can put that up. It's not focused, obviously. But if I focus it, but that's what the viewfinder looks like. So you just point it at whatever you want to take a picture of, obviously, and you click the button. This is a, well, it's not a DSLR, because the D stands for digital, I'm pretty sure. So I guess it's just an SLR. But that just means that what you see in the viewfinder is what you're going to get out of the final image. There are some cameras with an offset viewfinder that doesn't actually have like a prism. So what's going on here, I can take off the lens. There is a mirror. There is a mirror back there, and that reflects up to the top of this thing, which then reflects back into your eye. So what ends up happening is when you take a picture, that mirror moves out of the way, so the film is right behind it, and so whatever is coming in through the lens that would be here, that just gets put onto the film. So what you see through the viewfinder is exactly what you get on the film, more or less. I mean, it's going to be slightly different, but it's going to be much more similar than a camera with an offset viewfinder. The benefit of an offset viewfinder is generally that the cameras look sleeker, and they're a bit slimmer in design because there's not as many moving components. Also, the shutter is a lot faster, I'm pretty sure, just because less has to move. Because with this, the whole camera, or the whole prism has to move out of the way. Whereas with an offset viewfinder, you don't. It doesn't have a that surrounds the camera, the shutter button. This is your shutter speed. So you have numbers 1 to 1,000 on there. If I can show you, I don't want to drop this. You see the numbers 1 to 1,000. Unfortunately, the front-facing camera on my phone doesn't autofocus, so that's as crisp as it's gonna get. But yeah, you also have B, P, and A. A stands for aperture priority. So you can set the aperture on the lens that is this dial. The aperture is how big the iris is, or the aperture. So if you can see that, you see me opening and closing the iris. That is the aperture. So it cranked all the way to f16. That's very small, and then it goes all the way to f1.4, which is all the way open, so you don't see it change. This is a 50mm lens, so it goes f1.4 to f16. And the sun is coming out, and I look like I've been baked alive. Let's fix that. There we go. Anyway, it's not about me. It's about the camera. So it is what it is. Anyway. So that's what aperture priority does. Aperture priority, you set the aperture of the lens, and then the camera will do its best to pick a shutter speed that works best. So obviously, when you have a really high aperture and you've closed down the iris a lot, less light comes in, so the images are a lot darker. The benefit is that you get a wider focal plane, so more of the picture is in focus. You have to worry less about focus. So yeah, the more open the aperture, the shallower the depth of field of a picture, but also the brighter it will be. So yeah, there you go. So aperture priority, there is like a, I don't know where it is exactly. Yeah, I'm not sure, but the camera is able to like pick up the surrounding light. It knows how bright your surroundings are, and so it'll choose a shutter speed that works with the aperture that you've chosen. Now, it's not perfect, and also sometimes if it's really dark, or it doesn't even really have to be that dark per se. Like to you, it may seem pretty bright, but to the camera, it's not very bright. So in those situations, it can sometimes choose a shutter speed that is really slow. And if you're shooting handheld, that can be really bad, because then you'll get a really blurry image because it's, you're moving and the shutter is still open, which is not what you want. So yeah. But anyway, that's aperture priority. Then you have P, which is program. Program, as far as I know, it does both. It controls the aperture and the shutter speed, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I don't use program mode myself personally, but I'm pretty sure that's what it does. I know. Wow, Connor, you don't know anything about this. I mean, I'm not the most informed. Okay, I'll be the first to admit, but I'm pretty sure that's what it does. That's why you'll notice on the lens, all of the aperture settings, it's these numbers right there at the bottom. All of those numbers are in white except the last one, and you'll notice the P is green and the 16 is green. Not all lenses are compatible with the program mode. You'll know that it is because the last one is green, but also, man, I keep hitting the. Anyway, sorry. You'll notice. So, you see the dial right there? You see that little notch that interfaces with the notch on the camera, that silver one that it's bumping against? That tells the camera that this lens is compatible with program mode. And like I said, not all of them have that. That's also why you have to be all the way to the last one. I have a few other lenses that go to like f22 that are green, so those can work with program mode, but this one just goes to f16, and that's what you have to be on to use program mode. But like I said, I'm pretty sure that chooses a aperture and a shutter speed that is best suited for the light set, like the ambient light of your surroundings. I'm pretty sure. Then you also have B. I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty sure it stands for bulb, B-U-L-B, bulb, like a light bulb. B mode or bulb mode. It just leaves the shutter open for as long as you hold the button. So you use that for like long exposure, so like for nighttime photography, or if you're taking pictures of like the night sky, you know, if you're in a really, really low light environment, and you need the shutter to be open for a really long time, so you would use bulb. If you are going to use bulb though, you definitely need to have it on a tripod, and you definitely need to have, I don't know what it's called, but it's like, it plugs into the camera right here. There's a little port for it here, right there. You plug in something and it controls the shutter with like a remote. That way you don't accidentally, well, I mean, it wouldn't really be an accident, but when you press the shutter button, you would bump the camera, and that little bit of jitter would ruin the picture on a long exposure. So when you use the remote, you don't, interact with the camera at all. You don't bump it. So yeah, that's what the B stands for. And then you have, like I said, 1 to 1,000. That's 1 over 1,000. So the 1 is 1 second long. It's 1 over 1 second shutter. And then the 1,000 is 1 over 1,000. So the 1,000 is the fastest shutter speed, and the 1 is the slowest shutter speed of the predetermined settings. Like I said, if you put it onto B mode, you can have it open for as long as you want. But yeah, and then 1 over 1,000 is the fastest. You can't get it any faster than that. You'll notice that the 60, it's probably really hard to see, but the 60 is in red. That has to do with flash photography. I forget which way it goes. I don't do flash photography, but I forget, but it's either you can't go faster than that or you can't go slower than that with flash photography, because it has to do with how how long the shutter is open. If you, like I said, I forget, but if you choose the wrong setting, you'll get pictures where like half of the picture is in flash and half of it isn't, and that's not what you want, obviously. So that's why that one's in red. Like I said, I don't do flash photography, so I never really have to think about that, but that is there. So if you do flash photography, you'll have to consider that. Then coming over here to the other side of the camera, we have the ISO and exposure settings. So the ISO, again, autofocus doesn't exist, unfortunately, but there is a little window right there. That is your ISO. Right now it's set to 400. It is set to 400 ISO. And that has to do with the type of film that you have in there. Different types of film are going to be different ISOs. On modern digital camera, the ISO controls like the amount of post-processed light that gets hit to the sensor or whatever. I'm not 100% sure how that works either, but a lot of people that have interacted with digital cameras will probably attribute the ISO setting to like how bright the final image is, but also how like grainy it is. Generally higher ISO, it makes for a brighter image, but it also has a lot of like artifacting and noise, like that purple greenish noise, especially in low light situations. That's not really how this works. So setting the ISO on a film camera doesn't actually really change anything. Kind of. If you're in like aperture priority mode, see, the only thing that changing the ISO on this type of camera does is it informs the camera what ISO film you're using. But if you're using all manual controls, then setting the ISO doesn't really matter, because the film doesn't change. There's no digital component to the film. The film is just what it is. So when the light hits it, it's gonna, that the camera can't change how that happens, right? Like a digital camera can with the sensor and the light hitting the sensor. So all changing the ISO does on a film camera is informs the camera what the ISO of your film that you're using is, because like I said, you can get all types of film ISOs. I've worked with 200 ISO all the way up to like 1,000 ISO. The reason that's important is because if you're in one of the like program modes, I'm getting baked again. Anyway, if you're in one of the automatic modes, the camera has to understand not only the light of, what's like around you, of your situation. Jesus Christ. Oh, wait. Okay, wait. Hold on. I thought I was in also the type of film you're shooting on, because it has to do all the calculations of like what the correct setting it should be using is. So that's what setting the ISO is for on these cameras. I usually shoot in manual, so it really doesn't matter, but it's there. You should set it correctly, just in case you ever want to flip it over to automatic. But yeah, then you also have the exposure. If I'm being completely honest, I don't have any idea what the exposure does, because again, this is a film camera, so the camera itself can't change really. I mean, the only way the camera can change how the light interacts with the film itself is shutter speed and aperture. Those are the only things that it can do. It's not a digital camera where you can adjust the exposure after the fact, because it's an image, you know. That's post-processing. Technically, post-processing does exist with film, but it's something that happens long after the picture is like developed and whatnot, you know. So I have no idea what the exposure setting does on this. It might just open the shutter for longer. I always keep it at 0. It's this. So right there, the white one is 0, and then it goes -1, -2, and then +1, +2. Like I said, maybe it just opens the shutter for longer. That's the only thing I can think of as to what it would do. But like I said, I don't use that one. I just leave it at 0. And then you've got this little knob here. It's getting darker. You got this little knob here. That is how you wind that up to wind up the film. The film is on like a roll, obviously. And so once you're done with the roll, you press this button on the bottom, and that like unlinks the other side, because there's 2 spools on either side. You unlink the one side and then you wind it back up. This lever right here is how you advance the film. You can only do it once it's on, and I don't want to do it because there is actually film in this camera. But yeah, you can pull that out. That just makes it easier to access that. But yeah, you can pull it out, then you pull it even further to advance the film. There's a little window right next to that tells you which picture you are on. It's important to remember how many actual like frames are on the roll of film that you're using. They aren't always the same. I've messed that up in the past. It's a little embarrassing, but it is what it is. So yes, that was kind of loud, sorry. So yeah, you gotta keep that in mind. Then you have the little attachment up there. That's where you put like your flash modules and stuff like that. Not super important. Like I said, if you do flash photography, then sure, it's important, but I don't. You have this silver button. You press that down to take off the lens. The lens. Can you see me? No, I don't think so. Can you see through that at all? Whoa, is that my eye? Hold on. Wait. Is that my eye? Or is that my mouth? No, I think that's my eye. Yeah, that's my eye, I think. Am I looking around? I don't know. I can't look around and look at that at the same time. Anyway, that's how you take the lens off. You can interchange any compatible lens. You can get lens adapters to make it fit with lenses that aren't compatible. To put the lens back on, you'll notice there is a red dot there, and there's a red dot on the lens. I'm pretty sure this is how even modern cameras work. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You just put it on, twist it on, and it's on. It doesn't come off unless you press that button again, so it's, you know, cemented in place. I think that's pretty much it, though. This whole back panel comes off when you want to switch out the film, but obviously I don't want to do that because there is film in here, and that would, you know, ruin it. So yeah, I can't really think of anything else. I mean, I guess I could talk about the lens a little bit. The lens also has controls. So like I said, there's aperture, which is this ring, and then you have focus, which is this ring. Some lenses, this is a prime lens, which means it is only one focal length, 50 millimeters, like I said. But you have telescopic, or telephoto, I guess, I'm not sure, lenses that change their focal length. I have a few, like, I think I've got one that's like 75 to 210, maybe, I don't know, something like that. Anyway, so that would have a third component where you can zoom the lens. So you would have focus, aperture, and zoom, but this lens does not have that. It just has the two. It just focuses, and you'll see it moving a little bit. See, it gets longer. There you go. But that's how a film camera works. It's pretty similar to a digital camera. It just uses film. Why would you use a film camera? Because they're awesome. They also take really good pictures. I feel like a lot of people probably assume that, film cameras are old, so they're bad. Just because, that's kind of how technology works in the modern era, right? The video cameras that were being made 20 years ago, in like the 90s and the early 2000s, they suck ass. They're like 720p and they look like garbage. So I think a lot of people think like, oh, film cameras are even older than that, so they must be even worse. No, not at all. Film cameras make really good pictures. They take really good pictures, I guess I should say. Which was the main reason I got into it. And they're also really cheap. It's kind of a give and take though, because the cameras themselves are quite cheap. And the lenses are, they're not super cheap, but I would say they're much cheaper than modern digital camera lenses because there's less going on. Modern digital camera lenses have like autofocus, and other like more seriously mechanical and complex, internals. So the lenses are cheaper and the camera itself is cheaper, but taking the pictures, you have to buy the film. So up front, like right at first, it'll be cheaper to use a film camera, but if you plan on taking like a ton of pictures, over time a film camera will probably become more expensive. It just comes down to personal taste. If you get a really nice digital camera, they can take really good pictures too, but film just looks really good. It just looks really good. There's really no way around it. And like I said, it's kind of fun, going back. I don't know. That's just me. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Hopefully my, somewhat uninformed instructions were helpful. If you find yourself ever trying to take a picture with a film camera and you're just not sure how it works, you could watch this video.